Buddhadev ji, you are one of the greatest musicians we have in our country now. People know that you are an instrumentalist and a sarod player, and you are one of the greatest sarod players that we have among us now. So, should we start at the beginning? Tell us about your parents, the place where you are born.
Dr. Sarkar, myself of about 82 years of age minus 5 years or so,
Right.
when I was not exactly knowing what I was doing.
But still, I mean, that 5 years, that is also very important.
Yes.
Because you kind of crossed that magic border to become a musician. I have read your very pleasant autobiography, sir, Mamoner Chandra Sporsha Vilas. And one is enthralled to read the way you write Bengali and write about yourself. So I read in that you didn't have any ear for the music at the very beginning.
Not at all. I was born on 1st February 1933 in a place called Bhagalpur in Bihar, which had practically no musical
environments.
Yes. At the age of 3 or 4, my father took me to a local music conference in the town of Dinajpur,
In North Bengal.
North
yes.
Bengal,
Yes.
to hear one of the greatest vocalists of our time, namely Pandit Gyanendra Prasad Goswami.
Goswami.
My father was a lover of music, but his actually going into music was vehemently
Opposed.
and stopped. My grandfather, who was a stark advocate, and in his opinion, any kind of hobnobbing with music was the straightest, shortest route to hell and damnation.
Yes. Yeah, there were
So
people
he-
like that, yes.
He spared no pains to detoxify my father of music. Whenever he heard that my father so much as heard music of any kind anywhere, he started thrashing him almost within an inch of death. My father calmly took it. So therefore, when I was actually interested in music much later, he did not oppose me.
But your father was academically very brilliant.
He was.
And he held a high post in the government of the then undivided Bengal.
My
Please
father was.
tell us his name.
He was Prafullo Mohan Dasgupta.
That's right.
My father, in spite of my grandfather's persistent efforts to detoxify him of music, was a music lover and had a little bit of music in his voice also. So he took me to a music conference, as I said.
Where Goswami was singing.
Yes. My age was about 3.5 to 4.
Yes.
So my reaction to music was just to stand up and shout at Goswamiji,
Yes.
stop that shouting. Panditji listened to me, just chuckled a little bit and resumed singing. But I was not a man or not a boy to be, brushed aside like that.
Right.
I stood up on the chair on which I was sitting so that I could gain a little height. And so did not ask you to stop. And he was still gesticulating and shouting like that. So there's a little background to this. Gyanendra Prasad's music was divine, but his gesticulations
I
or
see.
mudras
I see.
were a little powerful, like swinging his hand around when executing a tan
And shaking his head and things like that, yes.
and bringing it down with a thud on the tavalia's back
I see.
or on the tavalia's thigh
Yes.
when he reached the sum.
Some, I see. So that looked strange to a boy. I guess.
Must have.
Yeah. But then again, he crossed that kind of border of non-musicality, but you were charmed by the playing of, was it Radhika Mohan Maitra, your guru?
It was much later. In between, there's quite
I-
a lot to tell you.
Please.
So in Dinajpur,
Yes.
the conference was held for several days. And on the second day, before Goswami was on to take the stage, there was a little small artist, not small by age, but well by seniority, who was given a small slot to sing. Right from the beginning, he started gesticulating wildly in the same manner in which, which was Goswami's habit. He swung around his hands, did some dance, and when ultimately he reached this sum, laid down and laid his left leg on the Tamalia's back.
Oh my God.
The whole hall roared in laughter, understanding what sort of thing he was trying to express.
Yes.
Goswamiji was getting ready to sing as the next item. The news reached him and he was very enraged, wanted to go leave the hall immediately. My father and a few other organizers dissuaded him from leaving after great persecution and all that. My next choice with music was when I was 5 years of age. My father had by that time been transferred to a place called Prasar. As it was his usual pastime, he immediately got in touch with the local musicians, invited them to his house. Weekends were spent listening to music. Two brothers, one was about 25, the other one was 18. The elder brother used to play bansuri. The younger brother used to accompany him on tabla.
Yes.
At that age also, the music did not really charm me so much, but I wanted to play a bansuri. My mother staunchly opposed it, saying that if you play bansuri, you will develop phthisis. It's a peculiar name
Yes.
given to...
For TB. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Tuberculosis. Yes.
I said, uncle does not seem to have had
Phthisis.
TB of any kind.
Right.
He's a robust young man. So why are you saying so? So this tussle went on between my mother and myself. One day when my mother was out of the room and the elder uncle was putting his basaris in his box, there are about 12 basaris of various sizes.
Right.
I was always thinking that he has 12. Why couldn't have at least
You
one
should
of them?
At least one, yes.
I voiced my intention to him when my mother was out of the room. He was, yes, all right. Take, which one will you take? My mother entered the room at that particular moment. Capital punishment in those days was shutting off in a bathroom and switching off the light.
That's terrible, yes.
That became to me as fearsome as a jungle full of wild tigers and bears and all that.
Right.
When after 1.5 hours I had secured my release, that big uncle and small uncle, they had left. But the big uncle had left a bansuri with my wife, saying, Bodhi, don't harass the boy. Who knows, he may become a musician later on.
He was prophetic, sir.
He was the same man who lifted bansuri to the level of a concert instrument.
Yes.
He was Panda Ghosh.
The great, yes, Panda Ghosh. And the younger brother must have been Nikhil Ghosh.
Nikhil Ghosh,
yes.
a tabla player and also a composer of no mean merit.
Right. Did it ever occur to you to become a vocalist ever?
No.
No. That's great. I mean, you chose to become an instrumentalist from the very beginning. Starting with the flute?
No, not with the flute. The flute was just a temporary phase.
I see.
It came and went. I think possibly I must have smashed the flute and thrown it away.
You didn't ever try it?
But I did not succeed much. I lost interest.
Yes.
My childhood was dotted with many incidents involving my father and ourselves. My father was a government servant when he was at Medinipur, myself about 6 months old. The district magistrate of Medinipur, Mr. Barge, was shot down. The natural reaction of British government was to round up all the boys of that age who killed Mr. Barge and sent them to prison. One such boy was brought over to my father by a sergeant who said, "Sir, this fellow has confessed.
I see.
He has confessed that he was in the gang. His confession has been recorded. Kindly go through it and will endorse it so that we may do the next part." My father said, if I have to endorse it, I have to read it and give him my reactions to it.
Your father was the SDO then
SDO,
at that time. Yes.
Deputy Magistrate.
Deputy Magistrate.
He said, no, sir, the SP has said I'll have to be present here when you sign the paper. My father said, well, don't teach me laws. Get out of the room. Then when the fellow went out, my father asked the boy, have you really confessed? Were you meant to confess it? The boy howled out, showed him his back, full of wheals, made by whipping.
Whipping, yes.
And said, they told me, sir, this sort of torture will continue until and unless I confess that I was in the gang. And if I confessed, I'll be freed. So my father said, utter nonsense. Let me tell you, if you confess, you'll be the first man to hang. So therefore, since you have said that the confession was made under duress,
yes,
I'm cancelling this confession and transferring you to judicial custody, not in police custody.
Yeah, that was a very bold act on the part of your father.
That very night, the commissioner of Bardhaman Division ran down to Medinipur and said many dirty things about my father and said, well, we are transferring you to an unknown place. Leave Medinipur today.
That was a punishment transfer, I should say.
There had been 2 or 3 other punishment transfers like this. So my father had to leave Medinipur, leaving behind his wife and 6-month-old child. We were later taken care of by friends and relatives. That was the first punishment transfer. The second was when, in course of his many transfers, he was at Kontai. Normally, the spelling was Kathi.
Kathi. It's a subdivision of Midnapur, yes.
Yes.
It's nearer to the sea, yes.
Jonput and Digha.
Digha, that's right.
So I was reading in class 4 or 5 of Kontai High English School. One morning I went to school and found that there had been a collection of white-capped young fellows preventing everybody from getting into the school. So I wanted to get in, we won't allow you. And then they started shouting, Vande Mataram.
Yes.
Wondering what is this particular shouting about. One of them said, come on, boy, you also join us. I joined them, saying Vande Mataram. After a while, the police pounced on all these boys and they clubbed them into a police lorry. One policeman caught me by the hand and was going to do the same. Another one cautioned me, no, don't do anything. SDO Sahib ka ladka hai. So I got free, came home and asked my father, what is Vande Mataram?
Yes.
So my father, where did you get this term? I said, and narrated the entire story. I said, he also started shouting, Vande Mataram. Meaning of Vande Mataram is, Mother, I salute thee. They think the motherland is their mother, and then they are saluting the motherland. Anyway, you don't get into such shoutings right at the beginning without understanding meaning. This was only the beginning. The whole movement gathered momentum.
Yes.
The district magistrate of Midnapur was Niaz Muhammad Khan, and his SP was Muhammad Ubaidullah. They sent orders to my father, shoot down about 15 to 20 people every day. Carry them in full public view to the hospital. On the ground before the hospital, litter the dead bodies.
On the ground. In
full view
public
of the
view, yeah.
And remove the dead bodies next day sometimes. After a few days, they took stock of the situation. Dasgupta, how many people have you shot down? My father said, I didn't get any opportunity to shoot them down. So here also, the two Muhammads, Niaz Muhammad and Muhammad Ubaidullah, with great roaring, they descended on Kathi and set up their own camp from where the operation of shooting people began. My father was transferred to a place called Chittagong Hill Tracts.
Yes.
The Japanese invasion had nearly reached Akiab near Chattogram.
Yes.
Nobody could take his family to that disturbed zone. So we were left helpless. My maternal uncles came and took us away, and we had an uncertain existence for a few months with no news of my father, whether he was alive or dead. After this, there was a retransfer back to Dinajpur, where once I had asked Yanendra Prasad Goswami not to shout like that.
That's right. Yes.
In Dinajpur, there was no music in which I was involved at all.
At that time, yes.
From Dinajpur, we went to Rajshahi, where all the happenings that I have told you,
Right.
they came
Everything
around.
began, yes.
Now, after
You met
Rajshahi,
your guru of life, yes.
and after Rajshahi, did I talk to you about Barisal?
Yes, you did, sir.
Maiman Singh?
Maiman Singh also you did, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Years later, when I was just about 9 or 10, my father was transferred to a place called Rajshahi
Yes.
in North Bengal.
North Bengal.
He had a transferable job. True to his nature, wherever he went, he looked for local musicians. So one of my uncles, who was a resident of Rajshahi, said, Dada, India famous sarod player is a resident of Rajshahi. My father said, will he come to a small man's house?
He was a zamindar too, I guess, yes.
Zamindar of Taland. So one day he came, played his sarod and went off, leaving me totally overwhelmed. His appearance, he was one of the most beautiful males that I had ever seen.
Yes.
His car was a blue Buick and his instrument was the sarod, which totally took away my fancies. I said, well, I must play this instrument. So my father tried to dissuade me, saying that, well, I am here on a transferable job. Therefore, this is an instrument which is played by only just a handful of people in all India. If I get transferred, who will teach you further? I was not to be dissuaded. One day I was engaged in this sort of an argument with my father, when suddenly my Guruji, Radhika Mohan Maitro, who was by that time very thick and thin with us, entered the room and said, what is going on? So I cried out, said, I want to play sarod. My father won't allow me to. He said, what's wrong with it? My father said, sir, don't turn the head of this young boy. He is a clerk's son,
Right.
heading for a clerical job ultimately, a big or small. He doesn't have a jamindari. So therefore, ultimately he has to earn his livelihood by a job, a clerical job.
Pen
possibly.
pushing, yes.
So my guru said, it's all right, but I am not an uneducated person. I am an M.A.B.L.
Yes.
There is a gentleman called Hirendra Kumar Ganguly.
That's right, yes.
He was an advocate, all right.
Right.
But not only that, but there's a special name given to advocates who perform a particular type of duty in the High Court.
I see.
So therefore, yes,
He was an illustrious person, Hirendra Kumar Gangopadhyay.
Yes.
And he played the tabla, that I know, yes.
so therefore, don't think that anybody who makes music is an uneducated, illiterate person. I am sending my boyhood sarod, which is of no use to me now. Let us start him off and see where he gets ultimately. So this sarod came and my trial began, and true to my father's apprehensions, he was transferred from Rajshahi to Khulna.
Yes.
I started crying. My guru came and said, no crying. You go on practicing whatever I have given you. If you want to become a Sarodia, you have to do a lot of practicing and no deviation from my lessons. If it gets to my ears, you played some of the film songs, the sorrows will come back to me immediately. But look at the Guru Bhagya.
Right.
The gentleman came to my father's place. Within the next year, he came twice. Didn't charge a single penny. He came to our house, stayed for 15 days or 20 days, went off, gave me fresh lessons. The next transfer from Khulna was to Calcutta. The partition came on. My guru lost his ancestral property.
He also migrated to Calcutta. Yes. But let us go back to, earlier days, that your guru kind of made a condition that you should also pursue your, study along with Sarod.
That's what my guru insisted.
And in spite of various interruptions, the partition of the country, and you had to go from place to place, you were a brilliant student all along.
Not a brilliant student.
But still,
there are brilliant students in each type of examination that takes place. My guru, by this time, my father was very enthusiastic about my sarod playing. But he was at the same time equally apprehensive that sarod playing might affect my studies. So my guru, in conjunction with my father, laid down a very fearful condition. Matriculation examination, we'll look into the list of
successful candidates.
Scholars.
Yes.
If your name is not there,
sarod is off.
Cannot tell you what kind of a dread I spent the next 3 months. So ultimately it came to light that I had become second in matriculation.
Wonderful, sir.
There is one small painful story which I'll tell you later. Second in matriculation, I had already grown to my full height of nearly 6 feet. And this sarod was just about half the size of a standard sarod.
It was still the boyhood sarod, the sarod of your guru, which he played in his boyhood.
My mother came down, and in this type of situation, she was a real battle axe. Said, you two babus scared him out of his life with his examination results. And now that the boy has stood second in matriculation...
Yes, he deserves something from you, yes.
Yeah. And you are honor bound to give him a full-scale sarod.
So, yes, certainly.
My father was mumbling and jumbling. My guru said, yes, of course, you have to give him a sarod according to his practical, actual size now. I know a man in Chitpur who prepares the best quality of sarods. My father said, no, sir. I don't want him to become a musician.
So my still mother some said, resistance, yes.
If you become unfaithful in this manner to your own promise, I'll sell my ornaments and give you.
Yes.
That was the final blow to the argument. Next day my sarod was ordered, and in those days a full-scale sarod made out of barmatic used to cost you about 200 rupees. Now it is 20,000 rupees. So my sarod playing survived.
You carried on with your sarod. But tell us one thing, that you went into career, you became an engineer, mechanical engineer. And in that capacity, you also had to have some training outside the country. You went to London, had some training there. But how could you, the two careers, your playing of sarod, your passion for sarod, and your professional career, how could you match the two? Were not there any conflicts between the two?
There are several chapters. This question has several chapters to it in answering. First is...
You must tell us, chapter-wise, I should say.
Chapter 1 was getting into public view or public hearing. Of course, the usual way was getting into competitions. I must remember very gratefully one senior Guru Bhai of mine named Anil Rai Chaudhuri, who was always very helpful in guiding me and helping me in my sarod playing. He took me to the first music competition, which was held in Howrah. I stood first, and when it came to receiving the prize, I had the shock of my life. The man who gave away the prize was the district magistrate of Howrah, named Kumar Odikram Majumdar. He was an ex-military man.
Right.
Naturally, as was customary, the man who would give away the prizes, he had to deliver his lectures.
Right.
Dear sirs, I don't understand music. I don't like music at all. Your boys and girls, they are going to absolutely
dogs.
Going to dogs.
Yes.
What are the lyrics? boy and girl falling in love, the girl trying to get to the boy and vice versa, and all the world against them. Therefore, the language is, I shall leave the house at dead of night when my parents or parents-in-law,
I see, I see.
saas nanadiya,
Oh, I see.
they will watch me.
That's a different kind of love, not, I should say, okay.
And once that is known, what sort of a fate awaits me, and the other side, for whom the girl is pining away, is not coming to answer her calls, is probably going to some other place, to some other girl,
Perennial theme of Indian music, Radha and Krishna, yes.
and lost himself all night with some other girl. In the morning he is coming with...
Shameless.
Shameless.
Yes.
That sort of language. You tell me, if your boys and girls sing this sort of language, where will they go? Why can't you teach them the song of lathis, rifles? Our great Guru Sadaya Datta, you are instead of that making them gulp this nonsense. So his speech was over when it was the time for my receiving my award. Number 1 place in Sarod, Buddhadev Bose. I jumped out of my skin. I had not committed any such crime to get, my parental title removed.
Right.
After that...
But that was a more famous name because he was a literature. Yeah.
After, when that gentleman had left the stage, there were 3 other Buddhadevs who equally displaced me from my parental title.
I see.
Buddhadev Guho, Buddhadev Bhattacharya, and so on and so forth.
There is another Buddhadeb Dasgupta even, a film director.
Yes. By the side of these great big Buddhadevs, I felt like a small dinghy boat under the bows of ocean line.
Not to the others, sir, are aware of your greatness.
And the great thing is yet to come. Went to the stage, Buddhadeb Dasgupta. Oh, you are that son of Prafulla Babu and Bhavanidhi. You have also come into this group. Anyway.
What a fall, yes.
That was my first prize in competitions. Many other prizes followed. And then came the day when I was taken to All India Radio for my first audition.
Yes, sir.
I made a very silly mistake. The gentleman who had taken me there was Pradyumna Kumud Mukherjee, son of Radha Kumud Mukherjee.
I see. Famous professor.
Yes. He was a singer himself, and he had insisted that I appear for the audition. Details of the audition will not be understood by many of my present listeners, but I made a very absolutely wrong mistake. A mistake is always wrong, but naturally the result was that I had not passed my audition.
That was your first audition.
In those days...
Could you tell us of the mistake? Because that may be of some lesson to the young aspirants who want to do something.
I don't have my sarod in my hands.
Oh, I see.
At a later stage, I will play this mistake referring it back. So therefore, before I came home, the news has percolated there that your boy has failed. My guru, my father, Gyan Prakash Ghosh, they were engaged in an adda. As soon as I entered the arena, Gyan Babu said, yeah, pillar of success.
Failures are the pillars of success, yes.
My father was absolutely burning, and I won't allow it to go into audition anymore.
That is, Guru must have been quite understanding.
No, I'll tell you. Guru was there also.
Yes.
Guru, translation loses the fragrance of a language.
Right.
Guru said, Pradyumna tokhoni bolechhilam. I told Pradyumna right at the start that don't put him into audition right at this stage.
But he allowed you to appear?
No, he is. Pradyumna talent khunje badachen.
I see. He was after talents, new talents.
And this is the talent that he took in. Talented kaap chotke giyese. This must be translated in English. Kaap is the...
Cup of talent has been skittled, could we say.
Kaap is the main slightly curved bamboo stick which holds the kite in proper shape. If that kaap gets skittled. Kite is totally rudderless.
Yeah.
That is the condition of the talent. So many things happened. So at that, moment, I left the adda of my seniors and promised that I will bring forth a proper answer to this. So I started practicing in a difficult tal, dhamar, A to Z committed to memory. Within 6 months or 8 months, Pradyumna took me again to audition, unknown to my father and mother and Guru also. So that's when I fired off my
The arsenal, you could say, your new arsenal.
Himan Rag mein Dhamar. After releasing 1 or 2 volleys of tans, Pradyumna came in, all right, go home, it's all right. That was when I was barely 16 years old.
Could you recall the year?
1949.
1949, yes.
I became an All India radio artist. My fees were 25 rupees. And at that time I came in contact with a real remarkable gentleman, Biman Ghosh, who was widely known and respected by the music world. After that, I went to Bengali, Presidency College
Right.
to study science into ISC. After ISC, I went to juncture of my life. Each boy had to fire off applications in as many directions as possible.
Right.
I also did that. As soon as the door of a particular institution opened up, so I could have become a doctor, an accountant, or an engineer. The door of Shibpur Engineering College opened first.
Yes.
I went there to get admission.
In the mechanical engineering
Department. The rules and regulations took my breath away. No musical instruments were allowed.
I see. Very interesting, sir. You went on side by side, practicing the sarod and taking your lessons at the BE college then. Now it is BE.
BE college, when I left BE college,
Yes.
it was 1954, coming out with a degree of mechanical engineering and looking out for some job. With the degree I was holding, it would be only a mechanical job.
Yeah, but it didn't take long for you to get a job.
No,
You didn't have to wait long.
no, because of my degree, which was a fairly good degree, the first class second.
First class second, yes.
I went into Calcutta Electric Supply, and that was my undoing. Because eventually the job which I secured was a shift charge engineer's job in one of their power stations, Kasipur generating station. 3 years I had to go out and learn the manufacturing and use of turbo generators and also boilers. These 2 items were used by CESC in their power stations. The duty was 8 hours a day.
And it shifted.
It was shifted. So some 80 hours was absolutely useless for drooling with sleep. After 3 or 4 years of shift duty, I became a maintenance engineer. And that was a nightmare because there were no fixed days, fixed hours. Whenever something went wrong, the maintenance engineer was asked to come and look into it.
You were held responsible. Yeah.
So maintenance engineer, they uprooted me from my paternal home and threw me into a cage. It was a golden cage, all right.
It was a quarter where you had to live, yeah.
Free electricity, free water, and many other free things.
They pampered you.
Pampered
in a way,
me?
Yes.
But whenever it was necessary, they didn't hesitate to butcher me also.
Yeah, you were at their beck and call. Anytime.
Anytime during the
Right.
24 hours.
Buddhadev, you tell me, even when you had done shift duty, did you find time to practice? How did
During
you-
the rest of the 16 hours,
Yes.
and an important event during my shift charge engineership was my first national program,
When was that, sir?
1961. And it is a memorable event because I was on night shift on that particular day when I would leave by train for Delhi, and the national program would be held in Delhi before a selected audience. So I
It
was to have...
It was a live performance before a selected audience.
Yes,
And
live performance before a selected audience
Yes.
from the number 1 studio of All India Radio. We had to go up by train All India Radio would only pay my first class fare, but I couldn't get there and come back within 3 days. So after much shedding of tears, my Kasipur generating station bosses, they agreed to leave me, to let me alone for 3 days. On one particular afternoon, I'll go to Delhi by air at my own expense, not
I see.
play the national program next day, and the next day come back to Calcutta. I had to go by air and come back by air. Not merely that, misfortunes never come singly. On the particular date when I was on night duty, and after night duty I would go home and start for Delhi. The boiler burst.